He didn't stop the wedding when he heard her confess everything. He waited until everyone was watching. The first thing Ethan noticed wasn't the silence. It was the way Olivia avoided mirrors. In a suite lined with floor-to-ceiling glass and soft gold lighting where every detail had been curated down to the last petal of white orchids, Olivia Grant stood in the center of it all, like a woman rehearsing a role she no longer believed in. The stylist adjusted the veil for the third time. "Perfect," she said. Olivia didn't respond. Ethan watched from the doorway unnoticed for a moment longer than he should have been. There was something off, not dramatic, not obvious, but enough to register beneath the surface, a hesitation, a flicker in her expression that didn't belong on a bride's face. He stepped inside. "You're going to be late," he said lightly. Olivia turned her smile immediate. "Too immediate. I won't," she replied. "Everything's on schedule." Her voice was steady, controlled, but her hand, the one holding her phone, tightened just slightly before she slipped it behind her bouquet. Ethan noticed that. He noticed everything these days. "You look—" He paused, searching for the word that used to come effortlessly. "Ready?" It wasn't what he meant to say. For a fraction of a second, something unreadable passed through her eyes. "Ready," she echoed almost under her breath. The room filled again with motion, assistant stylists' laughter that sounded rehearsed. Ethan stayed still, watching her move through it all like someone who had memorized every step but forgotten why she was dancing. 3 months ago, he wouldn't have questioned it. 3 months ago, Olivia's distance had a reason. Stress, work, the campaign she'd been leading, the clients, the deadlines. It all made sense, until it didn't. Until the late-night calls that ended when he entered the room. Until the way she started taking her phone into the bathroom. Until she stopped asking him questions, not because she trusted him, but because she had stopped needing answers. "You okay?" he asked. She looked at him again, softer this time, and stepped closer. "Of course I am," she said. "It's our wedding day." She reached for his hand. Her touch was warm, familiar, practiced. But it didn't reach him the way it used to. Ethan studied her face, searching for something, anything, that still felt real. "Olivia," he said quietly. "Yeah, there was a moment. A small, fragile opening where truth could have lived, but it passed. We should get going," he finished. Her smile returned. "Perfect. Flawless." "Yeah," she said. "We should." The hallway outside the suite was quieter. The kind of quiet that exists only in places where something important is about to happen. Staff moved quickly, whispering into headsets. Doors opened and closed with careful precision. Ethan walked beside Olivia, but not quite with her. There was a distance now, not physical, but something harder to measure, like walking next to someone whose shadow no longer aligned with yours. Halfway down the corridor, Olivia's phone buzzed. Once, then again. She stopped. "I need 1 second," she said. Ethan nodded. "Go ahead." She hesitated, just long enough to be noticed. Before stepping away toward a side hallway marked private, Ethan watched her go. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself it didn't matter. But his feet moved anyway. Not quickly, not deliberately, just enough. The hallway she entered was narrower, dimmer. The sounds of the main corridor faded behind him, replaced by something quieter, more intimate. Ethan slowed as he approached the corner. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. That's what he would tell himself later. He was just there. And then he heard her voice, low, urgent. I know, just listen to me." Ethan froze. There was something in her tone he had never heard before. Not with him. "I can't talk long," she continued. "He's here." A pause. Ethan's heartbeat shifted. Subtle at first, then harder, faster. "I told you it's not like that," she said. "This is just timing, optics, you understand that?" Silence on his end, words on hers. "I love you," Olivia whispered. Everything inside him stopped, not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically. "I said I love you," she repeated, sharper now, as if the other person had doubted it. "Don't do this today, not today." Ethan didn't move. "Couldn't. I'll fix it," she said. "After today we'll figure it out, I promise." A pause, then softer. "No, he doesn't know. He can't know." The air in the hallway felt thinner. Ethan's hand pressed lightly against the wall, grounding himself in something solid as the world tilted just slightly off its axis. "I have to go," Olivia said. "Just trust me." The call ended. Footsteps shifted. Ethan stepped back before she could turn. Not running, not rushing, just enough to not be seen. When Olivia emerged seconds later, her expression had already changed. Composed, controlled. The bride again. She didn't notice him at the far end of the hall. Didn't see the way he looked at her now, as if he were seeing her for the first time, or the last. Ethan straightened his jacket, adjusted his cuff, and made a decision. "Not here, not yet. Ready?" Olivia asked when she reached him, her voice bright again. Ethan met her eyes, and for the first time since he had known her, he lied back. "Yeah," he said calmly. "I am." The music had already started. Soft strings drifted faintly through the walls, muted, distant, like something happening in another life Ethan no longer belonged to. The ceremony was minutes away. Guests were seated, phones were out, expectations hung in the air like electricity before a storm, and yet, here, back in that narrow hallway, the world had narrowed to a single voice, Olivia's. Ethan didn't remember deciding to stay, he only remembered not leaving. The carpet beneath his shoes felt too soft, like it might give way if he shifted his weight. The wall against his palm was cool, grounding the only thing that still felt real as her voice continued. Low, urgent, stripped of the polished control she wore everywhere else. I told you not to call me right now. A pause. Ethan could hear the faint murmur of another voice through the speaker. Indistinct, but close. Intimate. Too close. Olivia exhaled sharply. No, I'm not panicking, she said. I'm managing it. Managing. The word lodged somewhere deep in Ethan's chest. I said I would handle it, didn't I? She continued, her tone tightening. You knew what today was from the beginning. Another pause. Her voice softened, but not the way it softened for him. This was different. I miss you too. Ethan's breath caught, not fully, not dramatically, but enough to interrupt the rhythm of his body, enough to make him aware of every inhale, every exhale, like something mechanical that might break if pushed too far. I know, Olivia whispered. I know this isn't fair. A faint laugh from the other end. It slipped through the phone just enough for Ethan to register it. A woman's voice? Clear now? Not imagined? Not mistaken? Real? Ethan didn't move. Couldn't. I never said it was temporary, Olivia went on, quieter now, almost defensive. Don't twist it like that. The silence that followed stretched longer this time. Heavy. Charged. Ethan felt his pulse in his throat. Then I love you. There it was again. Not hesitation, not confusion. Certainty. I've always loved you, she added, the words coming faster now, like something breaking loose. This doesn't change that. A beat. Ethan's fingers pressed harder into the wall. The texture of the paint became something he could focus on, something small enough to contain the chaos unraveling inside him. Because it's different, Olivia said, sharper now. You and I, we're real. This is just stability. Stability, the word echoed. Ethan almost smiled, not out of humor, but out of the strange, hollow clarity that came with understanding something too late. You knew what this was, she insisted. We talked about it. I never lied to you. Another voice through the phone, faster now, emotional, pushing. Olivia's response came instantly. No, I didn't choose him over you. A pause. Longer, more dangerous. Her next words came quieter. I chose not to lose everything. Ethan closed his eyes. There it was. Not passion, not confusion. Calculation. I can't just walk away, Olivia continued. My career, my reputation, everything is tied to this. You think it's that simple, her voice cracked. Just slightly. I'm not asking you to wait forever. I'm asking you to trust me. After today, things will change. A beat, then softer, almost pleading. Please don't do this right now. Silence again. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat now, loud, insistent, filling the space between her words. I said I love you, she repeated, firmer this time. That's the only thing that matters. The response on the other end must have shifted, because Olivia's posture changed. Ethan couldn't see her, but he could hear it, the subtle shift in breath, the tension creeping back in. No, he doesn't know, she said quickly. He can't know. The final sentence landed like a verdict. I have to go. A rustle, movement. Just don't disappear on me. Not today. The call ended. Silence rushed in, thick and immediate. Ethan didn't move, not when her footsteps shifted. Not when the faint click of her heels turned toward the hallway. His body reacted before his mind did, stepping back just enough to fall out of sight behind the corner. His pulse was uneven now, not racing wildly, but wrong. Out of sync with everything he thought he understood. He stared at nothing, at the blank stretch of wall in front of him, and for a moment, just a moment, his mind tried to reject it. No, not like that, not Olivia, not this. Cognitive dissonance didn't arrive as chaos. It arrived as resistance. As quiet, stubborn refusal to let the pieces fit together. She didn't mean it like that. You misheard. There's context you don't understand. But the words were too clear, too precise, too deliberate. I love you. I've always loved you. This is just stability. Ethan inhaled slowly, held it, let it out, again. Control. That was the first thing he reached for. Not anger, not confrontation, control. By the time Olivia stepped back into the main hallway, she had already become someone else again. The bride. Her posture straightened. Her expression reset. The softness disappeared, replaced by something luminous, composed, untouchable. She didn't see him at first. Ethan watched her for a second too long, watched the transformation, the ease of it. That might have been the most terrifying part. Not the betrayal, but how seamlessly she moved between versions of herself. Ethan, she called lightly when she noticed him. Where did you go? Her voice, bright, familiar, felt almost unreal now, like hearing an echo from a life that had already ended. He stepped forward, measured, calm. I was just making sure everything was ready, he said. The lie came effortlessly. Olivia smiled. Of course you were. She reached for him again, her fingers brushing his sleeve, then settling against his arm like they belonged there, like nothing had changed. Ethan looked down at her hand, then back at her face, searching, not for evidence anymore, For something else, something human, something that explained why. But Olivia only smiled wider, sensing nothing, or choosing not to. "They're waiting for us," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "They are?" A beat, then he added almost gently, "Let's not keep them." Olivia's eyes held his for a second longer than necessary, as if she felt something shift, but not enough to understand it. Not yet. She turned and began walking toward the ceremony. Ethan followed, each step measured, deliberate, final. Behind them, the hallway returned to silence, but inside him, nothing was quiet anymore. The doors opened, and the world applauded. It wasn't loud at first, just a rising murmur of admiration, the collective intake of breath that always came when something beautiful entered the room. White petals lined the aisle, light spilled through tall glass windows overlooking Manhattan, catching on crystal and silk and polished marble. Olivia stepped forward, radiant. That was the word people would use later. It would appear in captions, in congratulatory messages, in carefully curated photos that would flood social media within the hour. Radiant, effortless, perfect. Ethan stood at the altar watching her walk toward him, and for a moment, just a moment, his mind betrayed him, because she did look perfect, because this had been real once, because love, even fractured, doesn't disappear on command. His chest tightened, not from heartbreak, not yet, but from something more disorienting, disbelief. This isn't happening. The thought came quietly, almost politely, as if it were asking permission to stay. She said she loved someone else. No, she said she had always loved her. The distinction mattered. It echoed, looping, replaying, reshaping itself every time it surfaced. Ethan's fingers curled slightly at his sides. He focused on something small, her steps, the rhythm of them, the way her heels touched the aisle in measured, practiced grace. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Control wasn't about feeling nothing. It was about deciding what to do with everything. Olivia reached him. Up close, the details sharpened, the subtle shimmer of her makeup, the faint tremor in her breath, the way her eyes searched his face, not for truth, but for confirmation, for reassurance. She smiled. And in that smile was everything she wanted the world to believe. "Hi," she whispered, barely audible. Ethan looked at her, really looked. There it was again, the duality. The woman who had just whispered, "I love you," to someone else, now standing inches away, offering him a version of herself that had no cracks. "Hi," he replied. His voice didn't break. That surprised him. The officiant began speaking, words about commitment, partnership, trust, the language of permanence wrapped in gentle cadence designed to sound sacred. Ethan heard every word, and none of them, because inside his mind something else was happening, a reconstruction, frame by frame. Olivia in the hallway, her voice, the softness, the urgency, the way she said stability. His jaw tightened slightly. Cognitive dissonance wasn't loud, it didn't scream. It whispered contradictions over and over until reality itself felt unstable. She loves me. She loves someone else. This wedding is real. This wedding is a lie. Both things existed at once, and his mind refused to choose. In sickness and in health, the officiant continued. Ethan blinked slowly. The city beyond the windows shimmered in soft focus. Cars moved. People lived entire lives out there, unaware that something irreversible was unfolding in this room. He wondered, briefly, what it would feel like to stop this, to speak, to interrupt, to say, "I heard you." The image came vividly. Gasps, shock, collapse, immediate truth, immediate destruction. His heartbeat picked up at the thought. Then he let it pass. Not because he couldn't do it, but because he wouldn't. Not like this. Not here. Not yet. Olivia's hand found his. Warm, steady, familiar. Ethan looked down at their fingers intertwined. How many times had he held this hand believing it meant something singular, exclusive, certain? Now it felt shared, not physically but emotionally divided, and that division changed everything? "Do you, Ethan Caldwell, take Olivia Grant?" "Yes," the answer came before the question fully landed. Automatic, reflexive, the room softened again with quiet approval. Olivia's smile widened, relief flickering across her face. Relief. That word stayed with him. Relief that he hadn't hesitated. Relief that the performance was still intact. Ethan lifted his gaze to meet hers again. She believed she was still in control. That realization settled into him with unsettling clarity. "Do you, Olivia Grant, take Ethan Caldwell?" "I do." Her voice was strong, certain, unshaken. If there was guilt, it didn't live here. Not in this moment. Not in front of witnesses. Not under light. She was flawless in execution. That was the truth Ethan couldn't ignore. The rings were exchanged, metal against skin, symbol against reality. When her fingers brushed his, he felt it, a flicker of something deeper. Not love, not anymore. Awareness, sharp, cold, precise. The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me." Ethan barely registered the rest, because something inside him had shifted. Not broken, not shattered, but realigned. Emotion didn't disappear. It condensed, hardened into something quieter, something more controlled. "You may kiss the bride." Olivia leaned in. Ethan didn't pull away. He didn't hesitate. But he didn't meet her halfway either. The kiss was brief, perfectly timed, perfectly empty. Applause erupted, louder now. Phones lifted, cameras flashed, voices layered over each other in celebration. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell. The title echoed in the room, in the space between them, in the hollow place where something had just died. Olivia turned to him, glowing under the attention. "We did it," she whispered. Ethan held her gaze. For a fraction of a second too long. "Yes," he said calmly, "we did." And in that moment, Olivia had no idea she had already lost everything. Champagne glasses clinked like punctuation marks in a sentence no one was really reading. The reception unfolded exactly as planned, effortless, elegant, curated to perfection. A live jazz band softened the edges of conversation. Waiters moved like choreography. Laughter rose and fell in waves across the ballroom, and at the center of it all stood Olivia, radiant again. Ethan watched her from a distance that wasn't physical. She moved from table to table, her hand grazing shoulders, her smile landing precisely where it needed to. Every glance she gave was calibrated, every laugh timed, every gesture intentional. If there was a fracture in her, it didn't show. That was the problem. Ethan lifted his glass but didn't drink. The champagne tasted like nothing now, just texture, just temperature. He set it down without finishing it. His mind wasn't quiet. It was methodical. He replayed the call again, not emotionally this time, but analytically, the language, the certainty, the repetition. "I've always loved you," not an impulse, not a mistake, a pattern, a truth she had rehearsed long before today. Olivia's voice cut through. He turned. She approached him with that same effortless glow, slipping her arm through his, as if it had always belonged there. "You disappeared for a second," she said lightly. "Everyone's asking for you." "I was here," he replied. "Physically, maybe." She tilted her head slightly, studying him now. "You've been quiet." There it was. The first shift. She noticed. Of course she did. Olivia didn't miss details. She curated them. Ethan met her gaze, his expression neutral, just taking it in, he said. Her smile held. But something behind it sharpened. Taking it in, she echoed. Or overthinking it. He let a small breath out, almost a laugh. "You think I overthink things?" "I think you analyze everything until it stops being real," she said smoothly. "It's kind of your thing." There was no accusation in her tone, just redirection, subtle, immediate. Ethan nodded once as if conceding the point. "Maybe," he said. Olivia relaxed, just slightly. Control re-established, or so she thought. A server passed. Ethan picked up 2 glasses this time, handing one to her. Their fingers brushed. He didn't look at her. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Olivia took a sip before answering. "Of course." Her voice was casual, prepared. Ethan leaned slightly closer, not intimate, not distant, just enough to lower the volume of the moment. "When you said earlier that everything was on schedule," he began his tone. "Even you meant that literally." Her eyes flickered. Just once. Small, almost invisible, but he saw it. "What do you mean?" she asked. Deflection. Immediate. Ethan took a slow sip, buying himself a second. "I mean, calls, timing, everything lined up exactly the way you wanted." There it was. A test, not an accusation, not yet. Olivia's smile didn't fade. But it changed. Less warmth, more calculation. "You're asking me about logistics at our wedding," she said, a hint of humor woven in. "That's where your head is right now, redirection again." Ethan nodded slightly. "I'm just curious." About what she pressed, her tone sharpened. Subtle but deliberate. He met her gaze. About how much of today was planned. A beat. Then, all of it, she said smoothly. "That's how weddings work, Ethan." The answer was perfect. Too perfect. He nodded again as if satisfied. "Right." She studied him more closely now. There was a shift in her posture. Not defensive, not yet, but alert. "You're being strange," she said quietly. There it was. Turn it back. Make him the variable. Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Strange?" "Yeah." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Detached. Distant. "Like you're not actually here." Her eyes searched his face now. Not for truth, but for weakness. For a crack she could step into. "You're doing it again," she added. "Creating a problem where there isn't one." The words landed softly, but they carried weight. Ethan felt it, the old instinct to explain, to reassure, to fix. But that version of him was already fading. "I'm here," he said simply. Olivia held his gaze, waiting. Pushing. When he didn't elaborate, something in her tightened, just slightly. "Then be here," she said. "With me. Not in your head." Ethan nodded. Okay. The simplicity of his response unsettled her more than resistance would have. He could see it, because control requires friction, and he wasn't giving her any. Later, when the speeches began, Ethan stepped away, not far, just enough. His phone felt heavier in his pocket now. Not physically, but in implication. He pulled it out. Unlocked it. The recording app was still open, still there. He stared at it for a moment, at the small silent file that contained everything. Proof, reality, irreversible truth. His thumb hovered, then moved, Save, the file locked into place. Time-stamped permanent. Ethan exhaled slowly. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. But he wasn't done. Not even close. Because one truth wasn't enough to understand the full shape of betrayal. Patterns mattered. Duration mattered. Intent mattered. He opened another app. Messages. Not hers. Not yet. Instead, he scrolled through something else. Shared calendars, synced devices, fragments of a life that had once been transparent. Now it felt like a puzzle, and he had just found the first piece. Across the room, Olivia laughed at something someone said. Bright, effortless, untouched, but her eyes moved, searching until they found him. Their gazes locked. For a moment neither looked away. Then Olivia smiled again and lifted her glass toward him, a silent gesture, connection, possession, control. Ethan didn't return it, he simply watched, and in that stillness, something fundamental shifted. Not pain, not yet, but clarity, cold, precise, and quietly dangerous. The night didn't end, it only thinned. By the time the last guests drifted out and the final toast dissolved into polite exhaustion, the ballroom had lost its illusion of permanence. What remained was aftermath, half-empty glasses, wilted centerpieces, and the echo of something that had already shifted beyond repair. Olivia leaned into Ethan as they exited, her heels quieter. Now her energy softened into something resembling intimacy. "We survived," she murmured, a faint smile brushing her lips. Ethan glanced at her. "Did we?" he asked. She didn't catch the weight of it, or chose not to. "You're impossible," she said lightly, nudging him. Most people would call today perfect. Most people didn't hear everything he almost said, but he didn't, not yet. The penthouse suite was silent when they entered. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city. New York stretched endlessly below, alive, indifferent. The skyline glittered like something unreachable now, like a version of life Ethan had already stepped out of. Olivia slipped off her heels, exhaling. "God," she said, running a hand through her hair. "I need 5 minutes before I'm human again." She didn't wait for a response. Just walked toward the bathroom, already unzipping part of her dress. Routine, comfort, normalcy. Ethan stood still in the middle of the room. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached into his jacket and took out his phone. The recording was there. Untouched, undeniable. But tonight wasn't about reacting anymore. It was about understanding. He moved to the desk, sat, unlocked his laptop. Their devices had always been open. That was the irony. Passwords shared. Calendars synced, a relationship built on what looked like transparency. Ethan opened the cloud account, paused, then entered. At first, nothing, just the surface of a life they had curated together. Travel itineraries, work files, shared documents labeled with mundane certainty. Normal, too normal. He adjusted his search. Not broad, specific, patterns, keywords, time frames. The first anomaly didn't scream, it whispered. A folder, unnamed, buried. Ethan clicked, inside. Images, not explicit, not incriminating in the obvious sense, but intimate. Fragments. A coffee cup across from another, a blurred reflection of Olivia in a window, taken by someone else. A hand, hers, resting on a table, another hand just barely visible at the edge of the frame. Not proof, but proximity. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. This wasn't random. This was documented, saved, preserved. He kept going. Messages this time, not direct threads. Those were too clean, too easy to hide. Instead, he traced timestamps, gaps, moments when Olivia had said she was working late, when she had been with clients, when she had been too tired to talk. The data didn't accuse, it aligned. And alignment was more dangerous than confession. Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes scanning. There, a contact, saved under a neutral name. L. Harper. He opened it. At first, professional, surface-level exchanges, logistics, polite, then further down. Shift, the language changed. Subtle at first, inside references, shared memories that didn't belong to Ethan. You always leave first, only because you won't. I hate how easy it is with you. Ethan's fingers stilled on the trackpad. He read slower now, carefully, deliberately. I thought today would be harder. It is, just not in the way you think. I don't want to be a secret anymore. A pause in the thread, then Olivia's response. You're not a secret, you're just not public. Ethan let out a slow breath. Not confusion, not a mistake. Language like that didn't come from uncertainty. It came from repetition, from a dynamic that had been built, tested, reinforced over time. He kept scrolling. Photos, not sent directly, shared through links, private albums, moments Ethan had never seen. A weekend in Boston she had called a conference. A dinner in a dimly lit restaurant. Olivia's face softened in a way he hadn't seen in months, and the woman across from her. Partially visible, dark hair, sharp posture, familiar, not from memory, from presence, from somewhere Ethan had overlooked. His mind worked through it quickly. Events, work functions, a name mentioned once, maybe twice, not important enough to register. Until now, L, the call, the voice, the laugh. It all connected. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. There it was. Not a moment, not a lapse, a life. Parallel, intentional, maintained. He opened his eyes again, no shaking hands, no sudden anger, just stillness, because something inside him had already crossed a threshold. Emotional suppression wasn't effort anymore. It was instinct, necessary, clean. He went deeper. Archived files, deleted threads, recovered, and there, the earliest message, 2 years ago, before the engagement, before the proposal, before everything Ethan had believed was the beginning. So this is a bad idea. Then why does it feel right? Because we're both pretending we won't get caught. A long pause in the thread. Then, I don't want to stop. Neither do I. Ethan stared at the screen. 2 years, not overlap. Foundation. The relationship he thought he had built had never been singular. He leaned back slowly, the city lights reflected in the glass behind him, fragmented, distorted like everything else now. From the bathroom, water ran. Olivia hummed softly, unaware, still existing in both worlds, still believing she could manage it, control it, balance it. Ethan reached for his phone again, opened the recording, played it, low, barely audible. I've always loved you. The words hit differently now. Not as a shock, as confirmation. He stopped the audio, saved a copy, then another. Redundancy, security, strategy. This wasn't about catching her anymore. That part was done. This was about timing, about exposure, about choosing the moment where truth wouldn't just hurt, it would dismantle. Ethan closed the laptop, slowly, carefully, like sealing something irreversible. The bathroom door opened. Olivia stepped out wrapped in a robe, now her makeup softened, her expression relaxed. She looked at him and smiled. There it was again, that version of her. The one that had fooled him, the one that still believed it could. You disappeared, she said gently. Ethan stood, walked toward her, measured, controlled. I was just thinking, he replied. Dangerous, she teased. He stopped in front of her, close enough to see the details. The truth, the contradiction. How long have you known her, he asked. The question landed softly, too softly. Olivia blinked, once, a flicker, then, I'm sorry, she said, a faint laugh slipping in. Who? There it was. Denial, immediate, reflexive. Ethan held her gaze. Not pushing, not yet. He gave a small nod as if dismissing his own question. Never mind, he said. Olivia studied him more carefully now. Something in her shifted. Instinct. Recognition. You're really being strange tonight, she said quietly. Ethan smiled. For the first time since the hallway, but it didn't reach his eyes. I know, he replied. And in that moment, he understood something with absolute clarity. This wasn't about discovering the truth anymore. It was about deciding what to do with it, and for the first time, he wasn't reacting. He was planning. Morning came too clean. Sunlight poured through the glass like nothing had happened, like vows hadn't been exchanged under false pretenses, like truth hadn't quietly rewritten the night before. The city moved as it always did, indifferent, efficient, untouched. Ethan was already awake. He hadn't slept. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't need to anymore. Sleep belonged to a version of himself that still required recovery. This version required precision. Olivia stirred beside him, her breathing slow even. For a moment, she looked exactly like the woman he had chosen. Unguarded, human, real. Then she opened her eyes. Hey, she murmured, voice soft, reaching instinctively toward him. Ethan didn't move away, but he didn't lean in either. Morning, he said. She studied his face for a second longer than usual. You didn't sleep, she noted. Not really. Too wired, she asked, a faint smile forming. Adrenaline crash, something like that. She watched him searching, not for truth, but for reassurance. He gave her none. By noon, the reception venue had transformed. What had been celebration the night before was now repurposed into something more intimate, an extended gathering for close family, industry colleagues, and media connections who had stayed in the city for the after-event. Olivia insisted on it months ago. Visibility matters, she had said. Moments like this don't just happen. They echo. Ethan remembered that. Now he intended to make sure they did. He moved through the space with quiet authority, speaking to the event coordinator in low, measured tones. I want to add something to the program, he said. The coordinator nodded immediately. Of course. A speech, a video, a tribute, Ethan replied. Short, personal. Do you have the materials? I will. No hesitation, no questions. Money and timing solved everything in places like this. Just slot it in after the second round of speeches, he added. Before the final toast. Consider it done. Ethan gave a small nod. Thank you. Olivia watched him from across the room. At first it was just observation, then it became something else. A feeling, not fear, not yet, but something adjacent to it, a disturbance in rhythm. Ethan wasn't behaving incorrectly, that was the problem. He was behaving differently, calmer, more contained, and more distant than distance alone could explain. She approached him slowly, her heels clicking softly against the floor. What are you doing? She asked lightly. Ethan turned. Fixing a gap in the program. Her smile flickered. A gap? Yeah, Something was missing. Olivia tilted her head slightly. And you're just noticing that now? Ethan shrugged. Better late than never. His tone was neutral, too neutral. She stepped closer. What kind of something? She asked. A reflection, he said. On us. The word landed, soft but weighted. Olivia held his gaze, searching again, always searching. That's new, she said. Is it? Ethan replied. A beat. She laughed lightly, but it didn't fully settle. You're not usually the spontaneous type. People change. The answer came too easily, too smoothly. And that's when Olivia felt it. Not a thought. A shift, subtle but undeniable. Something was moving beneath the surface, and she wasn't controlling it. Not entirely. Can I see it? She asked. Ethan met her eyes. Not yet. The refusal was gentle, but absolute. Olivia's smile held. Barely. Since when do you keep things from me? She said, half teasing. Ethan didn't blink. Since it became necessary. There it was. The first fracture in tone. Small, but real. Olivia's breath caught. Just for a second. Necessary, she repeated. Ethan's expression didn't change. Relax, he said calmly. It's a tribute, not a surprise attack. The words were light. The implication wasn't. Olivia studied him longer now. Too long. Trying to recalibrate, to understand. But there was nothing obvious to hold on to. No accusation, no evidence, no confrontation. Just distance. Controlled. Intentional. And that made it worse. Okay, she said finally, her voice steady again. I trust you. Ethan nodded once. You should. The hours moved quickly after that. Guests arrived, conversations layered over each other again, cameras reappeared, less formal now but still present. Olivia slipped back into her role effortlessly, laughing, engaging, performing. But something had changed, not outwardly, internally. Her awareness sharpened, her eyes tracked Ethan more often. Not openly, but enough. Every time she looked, he was somewhere else, talking to someone, adjusting something, always composed, always controlled, and never fully present with her. It unsettled her more than anger would have, because anger she could manage. Distance. Distance meant she was losing access. Backstage, Ethan stood alone for a moment. A technician adjusted the screen. Files ready when you are, he said. Ethan nodded. Test it. The screen flickered to life. Images appeared. Not chaotic, not rushed, carefully selected, carefully arranged. The technician glanced at Ethan briefly. Beautiful piece, he said. Ethan's expression didn't change. Yeah, he replied quietly. It is. He watched the screen, not with emotion, but with clarity. Every second had a purpose, every frame a direction. This wasn't revenge. It was exposure, precise, irreversible. He reached into his pocket and checked his phone. The recording was still there, backed up, duplicated, untouchable. A single moment that would collapse everything. Timing mattered now, nothing else. Out in the main hall, Olivia felt it again, stronger this time, like standing on a floor that looked solid but wasn't. She laughed at something someone said, nodded, smiled, but her attention fractured. Pulled toward something she couldn't see yet. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A message. From Elle. Are you okay? Olivia's fingers tightened around the screen, just slightly. She didn't reply. Not here, not now. But the question lingered. Are you okay? She lifted her gaze again. Found Ethan across the room, watching, not intensely, not accusingly, just watching, and for the first time, Olivia felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Not guilt, not regret, but uncertainty. Because for the first time, she wasn't the one controlling how this story would unfold. Ethan checked his watch. Not yet. Soon. Very soon. And when it happened, there would be no version of her left to hide behind. The room was full again. Not in the loud, chaotic way of the night before, but in something tighter, more focused. Conversations had narrowed into circles of influence. Laughter came sharper, more measured. Phones were still present, but now they were tools, capturing, documenting, curating. This wasn't just a celebration anymore, it was visibility. And Olivia stood at the center of it, exactly where she had always intended to be. Her hand rested lightly on a glass of champagne, her posture flawless, her smile calibrated to every angle of attention. People leaned in when she spoke. They listened. They responded. She was still in control, at least that's what it looked like. Across the room, Ethan stood near the edge of the stage, watching, waiting. His presence wasn't loud, but it carried. People noticed him, not because he demanded it, but because he didn't, because there was a stillness to him now that didn't belong in a room like this. It drew attention without asking for it. The coordinator approached him quietly. "We are ready whenever you are," she said. Ethan nodded once. "Give me 30 seconds." She stepped away. Ethan glanced at the room, at the faces, at the expectations, at Olivia. She caught his gaze instantly. Of course she did. And for a brief moment, everything between them tightened into a single invisible thread. She smiled, encouraging, possessive, still believing. Ethan stepped forward. The microphone adjusted with a soft hum. Conversations softened, then stilled. Eyes turned, phones lifted. "Thank you all for being here," Ethan began. His voice carried easily, steady, controlled, unshaken. Olivia relaxed slightly. This she understood. This was familiar territory. A husband's speech, a tribute, something she could stand beside and own. Ethan glanced at her briefly, then back to the room. Yesterday, he continued, was supposed to be the beginning of something honest. The phrasing landed, subtle but off. Olivia's smile faltered, just a fraction. Ethan let the silence breathe. "I've spent the last 24 hours thinking about what honesty actually means," he said. A few people shifted, not uncomfortably, not yet, just aware. Olivia's grip on her glass tightened. Ethan turned slightly, gesturing toward the screen behind him. "I wanted to share something," he said. A moment that changed everything. The technician moved. The screen flickered to life. At first, images, harmless, carefully chosen, photos of Ethan and Olivia through the years, vacations, dinners, smiles that looked real because they had been once. The room softened, people smiled, nodded, recognized the narrative. Olivia exhaled, slowly. Of course, a montage, a reflection. She glanced at Ethan again. He wasn't looking at the screen, he was looking at her. And that's when it shifted. The next image lingered longer. A photo Olivia didn't recognize immediately. A restaurant. Dim lighting, her silhouette, across from someone else. The room didn't react yet, but Olivia did. Her breath caught, small, sharp. Her eyes flicked back to Ethan. He didn't move. The next frame, another angle, clearer this time. Her hand. And another hand. Closer now, too close. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Confusion, curiosity. Olivia stepped forward slightly. "Ethan," she started. He didn't respond. The images stopped. The screen went black. Silence fell. Thick, immediate, unnatural. And then, audio, her voice, unmistakable. "I told you not to call me right now." The room froze, completely. Olivia's entire body went still. No movement, no breath, just recognition, immediate, violent. "No," she whispered under her breath, but it was already happening. "I can't talk long. He's here." A shift in the crowd, people turning, looking at her, at him, at each other. "I miss you too." The words landed harder this time, because now they had context. Olivia stepped toward the stage. "Faster. Ethan, stop." Her voice broke through the audio, but didn't stop it. "I love you." The room collapsed into silence so complete it felt physical. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered. No one reacted. Olivia's face drained of color. "This isn't what it sounds like," she said quickly, her voice rising. This is completely out of context." Her eyes darted across the room, searching, calculating, looking for alignment, for support, for anything she could control. "There's a misunderstanding," she continued louder now. "He's twisting. I've always loved you." Her own voice cut her off. Final, absolute, irrefutable. Olivia stopped moving. Her mouth opened, closed. Opened again. No sound came out. Ethan stepped forward then, not aggressive, not emotional, just present. "Do you want to explain it?" he asked calmly. The question landed in the silence like a blade. Olivia turned to him, panic breaking through the cracks now. "Yes," she said immediately. "Yes, of course I do. This isn't what you think." "What do I think?" Ethan asked. Still calm, still controlled. She hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. "It's not an affair," she said quickly. It's complicated." A few people shifted again, this time differently. Distance, judgment, recognition. Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Complicated enough to say you've always loved her?" he asked. The word "her" hit the room like a second shockwave. Whispers broke out. Quiet, sharp. Olivia's eyes widened. "Don't," she started, but it was too late. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, tapped once. A screen mirrored behind him. Messages appeared. Clear, time-stamped, undeniable. "I don't want to be a secret anymore." "You're not a secret. You're just not public." Gasps now, not quiet, not contained. Real. Olivia shook her head, stepping back. "This is insane," she said, her voice trembling. "You went through my private. This is a violation." "A violation," Ethan repeated, still calm, still precise. "You built a second relationship inside our marriage." Her breath fractured. "It's not like that," she insisted, weaker now. It's emotional. It's different." "Different doesn't mean invisible," Ethan said. Her control was slipping. Visibly now, cracking. She turned, almost instinctively, scanning the room again, looking for someone, and then she found her, near the back, Lena Harper, still, silent, watching. Their eyes met for a moment, everything else disappeared. Olivia took a step toward her. "Say something," she said, her voice breaking. "Tell them." But Lena didn't move, didn't step forward, didn't defend her. Instead, she shook her head once, small, decisive, and took a step back. Distance, public, final. Olivia's face collapsed, not dramatically, not instantly, but in pieces, layer by layer, until there was nothing left to hold on to. "No," she whispered, not to Ethan, not to the room, to herself. Ethan watched her, not with anger, not with satisfaction, with clarity. "You said you didn't want to lose everything," he said quietly. Her eyes snapped to his. Filled now, unsteady. You already did. Silence swallowed the room again. But this time, it wasn't shock, it was understanding. And there was no coming back from that. The silence didn't break, it shifted. What had begun as shock hardened into something colder. Judgment, distance, quiet, calculation. Conversations didn't resume. They fractured into whispers, into glances that lingered too long, into phones subtly lifted not to celebrate but to document. Olivia stood in the center of it, alone, not physically. People were still around her. But in every way that mattered, she had already been separated. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides, fingers curling as if trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. "Ethan," she said, her voice thinner, now stripped of control. "We can talk about this. Not like this. Not here." Her eyes searched his face. Not for dominance anymore, but for mercy, for delay, for time. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time since the hallway there was something undeniably human in his expression. Not love, but recognition of what she had been, of what they had been, and of what she had chosen to destroy. "There's nothing left to talk about," he said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The finality carried on its own. Olivia shook her head quickly, stepping closer. "Yes, there is," she insisted. "You don't understand the full picture. You heard one moment, you saw messages. Out of context, Ethan. You're making this into something it's not." There it was again, the last mechanism. Distortion, reframing. Control, desperate now but still trying to exist. Ethan didn't interrupt. He let her speak, let her build something fragile in the air between them, because he already knew it wouldn't hold. "It wasn't supposed to replace us," she continued, her voice cracking as urgency took over. "It was separate. It was compartmentalized. I never stopped choosing you." The words hung there, ugly in their honesty, revealing more than she intended. Ethan's gaze sharpened slightly. "You didn't choose me," he said quietly. "You chose not to lose me." Olivia froze. The distinction landed, clean, precise, and devastating. "That's not the same thing." Her lips parted, but no words came, because she knew it was true. Around them, the room had shifted further. People weren't pretending not to listen anymore. There was no performance left to protect, only consequence. Olivia's voice dropped almost a whisper now. "I can fix this," she said. "We can fix this." Ethan held her gaze. "No," he said. The word was calm, absolute. "There is no version of this where I stay." Her breath broke. "You're just going to walk away?" she asked, disbelief mixing with something rawer now. After everything we built," Ethan exhaled slowly, and for a moment it looked like he might soften, but what came instead was something else. Clarity. "You didn't build this with me," he said. "You built two versions of your life and expected me to live in the one that was convenient." Olivia flinched. Physically, as if the words had weight. "I loved you," she said. Past tense. She didn't even catch it. Ethan did. "I know," he replied. And it wasn't comfort. It was acknowledgement. A fact that no longer changed anything. Behind her, movement shifted. Lena was gone. No goodbye, no confrontation, just absence. And somehow that hurt Olivia more than anything Ethan had said. Her eyes flicked to where she'd been standing. Empty. Gone. That was the moment something inside her truly broke. Not the exposure, not the humiliation, the abandonment, because for the first time the two worlds she had balanced so carefully had both disappeared. At once. "I didn't think it would end like this," she whispered. Ethan studied her. "No," he said. "You didn't think it would end at all." Silence followed. Heavy, unavoidable. Olivia's shoulders dropped, just slightly. The fight drained out of her posture. What replaced it wasn't dignity, it was realization. Slow, painful, irreversible. Her voice came again, quieter than before. "What happens now? It wasn't a strategy. It wasn't manipulation. For the first time, it was a real question." Ethan glanced around the room, at the people, at the phones, at the witnesses, then back at her. Now he said, "You deal with the life you created. No anger, no cruelty, just consequence." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope, already prepared, already decided. He placed it gently on the table beside her. "What is that?" she asked, barely audible. "Everything formalized," he said. "Annulment, statements, legal protections." Her eyes widened. "You already—" Yes, of course he had, because this wasn't a reaction. It was a conclusion. Olivia stared at the envelope like it might disappear if she didn't look at it directly. It didn't. Nothing was disappearing anymore. Everything was staying, permanent. She started, but there was nothing left to say. Because every version of the story she could tell had already been overwritten. Ethan adjusted his jacket, a small, almost habitual motion, then he looked at her one last time, not searching, not questioning, just seeing, clearly, completely. Goodbye wasn't necessary, so he didn't say it. He turned and walked away, no hesitation, no pause, no looking back. The room parted for him, not dramatically, not ceremonially, but instinctively. People moved, space opened, the path cleared, and just like that, he was gone. Olivia didn't follow. She couldn't. Her legs felt rooted in place, her body unwilling to move forward into a reality she no longer recognized. Around her, the whispers grew louder. Names, speculation, judgment. Her phone buzzed relentlessly now. Notifications stacking faster than she could process. Mentions, messages, damage. Her career, built on image, on control, on perception, was unraveling in real time. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. She looked down at her hand, the ring still there, heavy, meaningless. Slowly, almost unconsciously, she slid it off, held it in her palm, stared at it. A symbol of something that had never truly existed the way she claimed it did. Her fingers closed around it. Too late. Everything was too late. For the first time since the hallway, Olivia understood not just what she had lost, but why. Not because she was caught, but because she had never intended to stop. And now there was no version of her left to hide behind, no narrative to control, no future to manipulate into place. Only consequence. And the quiet, brutal truth she could no longer escape. She hadn't just destroyed a marriage. She had dismantled her own life, completely, irreversibly, alone.